The specialists are back, and we are recapping episode number 11 of Deal or No Deal Island, or as they called it, Finale Part 1. Yes, Finale Part 1, rather than just doing the finale on one night and making it 2 hours long. We got 1 hour this week and 1 hour next week, which is actually a bummer for next week because I'm out of town. I'm on vacation next week. So our Deal or No Deal Island finale recap is going to be like
Just
super
Will.
late. Yeah,
Or
either
just me.
just Will. Yeah, either just Will or it's going to be a whole week later, like on May 20th. And it's a bummer because there's no reason they shouldn't have just done the finale last night. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, you have, I think, two options here. You can either call this episode 11 and it's the penultimate episode, and there you go. And you air it, and then next week is the finale. Or you could have a two-part, 2-hour finale, and you air it on the same night. There's nothing about this episode that was finale in any way whatsoever.
Nope.
Honestly, it was an opposite. Like we didn't even whittle down the numbers yet, and I know we're very close to losing 2 people, but we are still at 4 people left in the game. That's exactly where we started the episode. Yeah, there's nothing final finale. This is just episode 11, so let's just call it that because that's what it is.
Yeah. No, and I thought it was just interesting at the beginning of the episode. I was just calling it episode 11, and at the beginning of the episode, I think it was Joe in the voiceover said, "Welcome to the Deal or No Deal Island finale part 1," or something like that, as they showed the logo for the show. And I said, "Wait, what? What is happening?" So I guess what's weird to me is that NBC with this show didn't get just a 2-hour finale. It's almost like they really needed to fill all of these weeks. And they didn't plan, I don't feel like, for this show. Like, I know that they did plan for it, but it feels like their plan was wrong on how this would end over these last however many weeks. Because now at the beginning of next episode, right off the bat, we are going to see Amy get eliminated because I think Boston Rob is going to beat her in the leg race. And then we are going to see somebody get knocked out because they have the lowest case left. And then we're down to final 2 for the next 40. I know that, an hour-long episode is 42 minutes, but for the next 58 minutes of Deal or No Deal Island, it's just going to be the final 2. And so it felt to me like all I want to know is, does Boston Rob beat Amy? And I believe he does based on the shots we were seeing. But once we know that answer, the drama goes away. And now you're saying to yourself, okay, we're just going to watch the rest of this episode play out, which is what the finale is. But that's what I'm saying. As a double episode, just as 2 hours on one night, this would have been so much more satisfying. I don't feel like the cliffhanger is working here.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did a good job, like, deciding when to end it. Like, I think this is a better ending than if they had told us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So good job there. I think it could have been more of like a, television event, as they call it, or at least they used to call it that. Like back in the day, I remember like 24 would have their premieres and be like the 4-hour season premiere, and you get 2 hours Sunday night, 2 hours Monday night, and it was an event. Like they'd advertise it over football. Like everyone's talking about 24. It's this event. And I think when you package episodes together, it does feel bigger. And so that we only got 1 hour with this kind of trickling little, it's a cliffhanger. I want to know what happens, but is it, I mean, that's kind of the most exciting part, because we know whoever gets eliminated, then we have 3 people who are staying there and it's all luck. And that's like, okay, cool. And then we have to figure out how this thing ends. I just think, I'm with you. This should have been 2 hours on one night, really, for the show. I mean, like a first season big network show, give us 2 hours, make this thing hit, get some people chatting about it. Because there's really, we are podcasting this. There's not a whole lot for us to dive into in this hour of TV that we just saw, because again, nobody got eliminated. We had some wheeling and dealing, but even that strategy was very simple. And we've learned that had no influence on how people are going to be eliminated. We saw Amy and Rob make this like pact, and then we saw Stephanie and Jordan make this pact. You get to bring somebody. Guess what? You don't. So that was a kind of a waste. I also think that this being a finale hurt the episode in that the front was very slow. The front of this episode was very slow because we are not playing Deal or No Deal at the end of this episode. So instead of having, hey, let's hang out with the characters, see what they're doing, and then get into an excursion, then figure out who's going to play, then get into Deal or No Deal, we just had the characters kind of hanging out, staring at a helicopter, eating lobster, and then we get into the challenge in the back half. So it took a while for this thing to get going. I do like this challenge and I like this game. So we will break all of it down, but I'm starting out this podcast saying, yes, I think 2 hours. This should have been, 2 hours back to back.
Yeah. I was very surprised when I saw it end. I said, oh, that's it. And I do agree with you. If you tell us, like, let's say Amy does beat Boston Rob back and you tell us that, nobody's watching the finale. Like, no one is watching next week if that happens. So maybe that should tip us off that maybe Boston Rob loses, but I also feel like this is
that's what
end, even if he does win, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it could be something where they're like, man, we need Boston Rob in the 12th episode. And so let's like elongate episode 11, where as hey, this happens sometimes when you have kind of an episode breakdown or a beat sheet or act breaks of like, this is what our episodes look like. And especially when you get towards finales of a show, often you have to break away from the current format. And in doing so, you kind of have to work your act breaks out a little bit differently. And this could have looked very different on paper. And then when they get the results back, they're like, okay, where is our, act 6 act out? Like, where are we going to end this episode? And they maybe had planned ending it differently, but they got the results. They got this thing with Boston Rob. They got him breaking the rules. This really, maybe this got played up a little bit more and they thought this was the best play to end it, which I could see it going either way. Like, I know you're sitting here thinking, I think Rob makes it. I think there's a chance Amy comes. I mean, Amy had such a big head start. Like, this is really a 50-50. And I mean, it would suck, but I think it's very likely Amy comes out of that maze first.
Yeah, and we'll dive into that a little bit more as we kind of work through this. I want to talk about what you were saying with the pacing of this episode. The beginning of this episode was weird to me because we got the backstories finally of all these characters. We finally heard Jordan's backstory. We finally heard Stephanie's backstory. We heard a little bit about Amy throughout the season. We all know Boston Rob's backstory. So we hear all of that. We get the idea of here's the banker, which they are really, really leaning into super hard. They still don't tell us who the banker is, but they're leaning in so hard. And now we're 15 minutes in and they go to this challenge. And then this challenge ate up a solid 25 to 30 minutes of the episode, which for what Deal or No Deal Island has been was really long. And I understand it's a finale and you want to extend some things. You're always going to see challenges that are probably a little bit longer in a finale type episode. But it felt to me like it was just kind of like, oh, we need to fill time. We need to pad this out. And so we got a slow 15 minutes at the beginning. We got the random, build of the banker. And then just, okay, we're going to play this game, which throughout the season, the challenges have very much been a segment of the show, not the show.
Not
and so that was definitely a little bit of a flaw when we're 11 episodes in now. This is the first episode where we saw nobody play Deal or No Deal Island. And I almost feel like that's why they're now calling it Finale Part 1, because they want it to be like that's their excuse why nobody played Deal or No Deal Island in this game.
Yeah. That is why it's Part 1. I mean, we are eliminating people in different ways. We are building towards the final answer of who wins the show. We will get Deal or No Deal played, and we are teasing the banker. Yes, it's very much a 2-part episode. And just when in speaking about that, it's like in practicality, like we are watching episode 11 though, because the finale is not until next week. That's what I meant by that. I think you got that. No, a lot of challenge here. And I think what's made the challenges so good this season is the decision making and the social aspect. And that kind of falls short here. And not to say this wasn't exciting or wasn't fun, but the things I've liked about the Deal or No Deal challenges weren't really on display in this episode. This felt like a physical foot race. So like, who has the stamina, who can run the fastest? You're not trying to like outwit. You're not even like, should I take this or that case? I mean, look, we have a low value section and a high value section. I don't know in what world anyone is even going to the low value section ever. So you're pretty much just racing out through a maze than memorizing things to get back to the high value cases. And that's, that's the game. And we have this thing with the question at the front and how many cases there have been. And can you think about that? So it looked really cool. Mazes are fun, visual. We had some fun stuff with Amy lying to everybody. Obviously that's great. But in terms of what these challenges have delivered on a week-to-week basis, that kind of also it came up a little bit short for me. I don't know if you felt that way also, Phil.
Yeah, so I have two things to say about that. One, I agree with you about the low case, high case thing, and we can talk through that. The other thing I didn't like was that there was no hinting for the people who got to the high value cases. There's 4 value cases. They're all blank cases. I feel like there should have been something like if you were the first one there, you should have been told like, oh, maybe like some riddle, who cares, something that gives a little bit of a hint so it's not pure luck, because Jordan gets there first, but Jordan doesn't necessarily get any reward for being the first one there. I feel like there should have been something with that. And also, like you said, with the high value, low value, the only person guaranteed to be eliminated from this game is the person who arrives back to Joe last. It's the only person guaranteed to be eliminated. So why would you not go to the high value when you're being told that the lowest value case will also be eliminated? If you're worried about not being the last person out, go grab a low value case. Now you've guaranteed your third place. Like you are guaranteeing by going to low value that you're not going to win.
Right. It doesn't make any sense. They could have just had one location. I don't see a world in which you go for the low value section unless there's like a potential overlap where, like, yes, the total is higher of the high value cases, but there's 1 out of the 4 cases in the low value section that is higher than the lowest value in the high value section, which that is extremely confusing to say, but that's the only way that works. It's like, I'm going to take a big gamble because I'm so far behind. I need to make sure I'm not last. I'm going to go grab a low value case. The way it's set up, even if you know that's true, you're not going to go for a low value case because you know you're going to be eliminated anyway. And yeah, I am with you. It did feel like we were kind of just like elongating this episode and staying with this challenge, which I don't really know why, because we're speeding through 2 eliminations here. I mean, we should probably talk about that. How do we feel about 2 people being eliminated from a challenge? And the amount of people eliminated from a challenge so far in this entire season and this entire show is 0. Mm-hmm. For me, that's kind of a big leap to say we have our final 4 contestants. We're just going to slash it in half based on a challenge when the entire game has been deal or no deal.
Exactly. And not only is it based on a challenge, deal or no deal has nothing to do with it. So,
right.
Like you're telling me that at Final 4, Amy, and look, I'm not the biggest Amy fan. I think she's okay. She's decent TV. You know, she's one of the only other people other than Aaron and Rob and Alyssa that we actually got to know in any way, shape, or form. But to have this challenge suddenly be unbelievably physical, and you can say, oh, well, at the beginning there was some mental. I don't know how much mental was really going on with the beginning there because we don't know all of the details. But here's the deal. For that challenge to put Amy at that much of a disadvantage and say, and you're going to go home no matter what, is crazy. Like, think about Survivor. Never in Survivor history has somebody been told, if you lose this challenge, you are going home. You
Unless
always have an
edge of extinction. Or
yes, well, edge of extinction, but that's, you've already been voted out of the game at that point. So like you've already gone through the major mechanism of the game. But in terms of like when Lindsay had the what was it, the game, the do or die, Deshaun had do or die. When they had do or die back in season 41 and 42, you could finish last place in a challenge, but you still had a chance to survive it. You were putting your game on the line for finishing last, but you weren't done. For a show like Deal or No Deal Island to go right to that is pretty
and
shocking.
For 2 people. I mean, I could see it with for one person, and then that it's all luck anyway. Like, even if Rob survives this, it's going to be like, well, that's kind of shitty for Jordan or Stephanie.
Well, and that was going to be my next point is you have Amy, who is at a massive disadvantage just to run through the maze. So that feels unsatisfying to me because the game isn't about being physically fit and being able to run through a maze fast. That's not what this game has been, and nothing has been like that. And then on top of that, now it's just going to be total luck over whether you survive or whether you leave. it felt like the game had a solid structure from 11 people down to 4. And all of a sudden they said we must abandon that structure to get down to 2 people. And we've seen in like shows like Survivor and The Traders and stuff like that, when you get down to a certain number, the mechanism of the game will change because there's got to be a way to pick a winner or to get to a winning situation. However, in this one, this is such a gigantic leap. It's so out of left field. It has nothing to do with anything we've watched the entire time. So I do find it more problematic. I feel like this was more for the show of everything than for the actual show, meaning the game, Deal or No Deal Island.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. When Joe says 2 people are going to be eliminated, I kind of rolled my eyes. Like, really? Like, that's how we're going to lose half of our finalists, especially because we had a non-elimination episode in this series. Why did you need that? If you're going to now, you do that, which was terrible on its own. To have the whole Deal or No Deal be played and have it be absolutely meaningless, except adding value to the final case, which we still don't know the purpose of. Why do you do that? Because that episode sucked. We talked about where like that was lame. Like no one wants to see that. And then it's making this feel really rushed that we're just losing 2 people because of like who's has the best cardio. So at this point, let's say they had eliminated somebody in that non-elimination episode, we would be at 3 people. And then look, you could just do 3 people and play a challenge, play Deal or No Deal, and then you're at a finale with 2, and you can do whatever you're doing next week. Do it next week anyway. And I think that's a better show. It makes both that earlier non-elimination episode better, and it makes this episode better.
And it makes more sense with what the show
It makes
is.
more sense. It makes it more fair. It makes it more compelling. It makes it more suspenseful. So,
and we have this comment from Brett Kopp. This episode should have eliminated the 2 people. The next week we can have the final challenge and do the Deal or No Deal game. Next week is going to feel rushed AF. I don't think that they're actually going to be doing a final challenge next week. Like, what is the final challenge going to be since they are getting down to 2 people early on in the next episode? How are they going from 2 to 1 if this is how they go from 4 to 2?
Right. I think we are definitely losing those 2 people within the first 5 minutes of the show. So for all intents and purposes, it's like we are pretty much starting the finale with 2 people, and then we don't know what they're doing. So it's hard for us to sit here and say it's going to be rushed or not rushed. Especially when you get down to 2 people in a show, there's just not that much energy. There's not really a lot of dynamics to play with. It's just 2 people left. It's like in Survivor in the original, when there was 2 people, like it was just 2 people sitting there, and we have breakfast, and they kind of always speed through that because you get a couple confessionals, and then you get into final tribal council pretty quickly because 2 people, there's just not much going on. So I don't know if I think it's going to be rushed. It's more like, damn, we did all this work. All these people have played the game a certain way up into this point, and then it kind of just doesn't matter. It's like we're just going to kind of randomly chop you guys in half kind of out of sheer luck. I mean, it really is. This is a very luck-based challenge.
Very luck-based. Unbelievably luck-based. And then on top, so here's actually a theory I have. Remember early on when we started podcasting the show, we didn't even know if we were going to do the whole season because we didn't know what the show had in store. We just said, let's give it a try. I remember Googling and finding that the finale for this show was going to be May 6th. It was supposed to be last night. I kept finding that, and I would say that. I'd be like, no, it's going to be May 6th. It's going to be May 6th. And everybody would be like, no, I think it's May 13th. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure it was May 6th. Whatever it was. I almost feel like they thought they had a 10 or 11 episode order for this show and not a 12 episode order. I almost feel like they might have gotten 2 episodes added, which is why we had a non-elimination leg in the middle where they could have taken that episode, and hear me out. They could have taken the non-elimination episode in the middle and made that the first part of an hour-long episode. So it'd be like non-elimination, and then they play Deal or No Deal again at the end of that episode. You could have done 2 of those. But I almost feel like they might have had more episodes added because something got canceled or something.
That's bizarre, though. I mean, the way they had to shoot the non-elimination portion in the field. Like they had to actually go through that whole song and dance. They had the case. They opened it. It said no one's getting eliminated this week. Like that was always part of the plan and format and structure of the show going in. But yeah, maybe they tacked on. Maybe this was going to be like a 90-minute finale on last night, May 6th. And then it went to, hey, let's extend it out one more episode. And then they cut it up into 2 pieces, and that's why we got a longer challenge. That could definitely be it. And I feel like if it was one 90-minute episode, or if this was on one night, the cutting 2 people doesn't feel as like, oh well, we have to end this show. We have to end this show in an hour, so we got to cut 2 people. The fact that they have 2 full episodes makes me go, man, did we really need to lose 2 people that quickly? So,
and it's fun because we podcasted The Trust earlier this year, and that show just absolutely fell on its face at the end. Totally disastrous ending. And we talked about with that show, how is this going to end? It feels like with a lot of these new reality shows, Deal or No Deal Island has felt like a really well-designed game for most of the game. We've really commended the structure of the game for the most part. There's been certain nitpicks here and there. There's been certain issues we've had, but as the bones of the show, it makes sense. This is the first time where I was really like, yikes, dude. Like, I don't get that.
I know we've been critical of the show too, in terms of like, for me, my biggest critique has been the production interference and whether it exists or not, and to what extent. Why are some Deal or No Deal games so different from each other, and who's coming up with these numbers, and do they know it's in the case? That's kind of my big thing with the show, which you can kind of look past because, hey, we got to keep Boston Rob and Aaron in the game for so long. We got to buy out Dawson and Miranda, or whatever her name was. But the challenges have been really fun. The Deal or No Deal in the Temple has been really fun. The vibe's been good. We like the gameplay. Do you put yourself up? Do you, what do we, the whole vibe we like. This does feel like they went in the wrong direction here on how to end this thing. This really does feel like a misstep. As much as I've liked the show, and I think we've talked it out enough now where we're kind of like, wait, it's just running around. And then if you're slow, then you're out, just from pure physical standpoint. And the other 3, even if you were good at what supposedly what the banker is even testing, is determination, which doesn't even really make sense here, because it's almost like memory. Like Jordan should be, or whoever. No, I guess Amy was the one who got it first. She should be commended, because that was kind of the only.
She's the one who's in the running
skill.
Yeah,
you're right. So yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do? We had to lose 2 people, and hey, the banker's cutthroat, man.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out who he is. I mean,
the other problem has to be Howie, right?
It has to, but then I was a little confused earlier when they were saying how in this episode they said, I've always wondered who the Shadow Man is, and it's like, are they actually going to try to reveal it as this is who the Shadow Man actor was the entire time? Like, are they going to try to pretend that it was somebody? You don't think so?
No, I think this has to be Howie. If it's not Howie, it's a disappointment. Unless it's someone more famous than Howie.
Like, what if it's like, what if it's like
George
Elon
Clooney
Musk or something, right? George Clooney, like it's like somebody who's like a known multi-millionaire, maybe billionaire. Like it's Jeff Bezos popping out.
It's like Mick Jagger comes out.
Who owns NBC? Like that's who it's got to be, right? Like, because it can't, it can't be Jeff Bezos because he owns Amazon. He's not going to come over and be like, "Oh, hello, NBC." But it's got to be somebody like that. If it's not going to be Howie Mandel,
it has to. It has to be Howie.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think we're all pretty much assuming that at this point. But you know what the problem with that is? Who really cares? And also, I think it's weird that in the finale of this episode, that's being hyped up as one of the biggest question marks heading into like in the middle of the finale. One of the biggest questions we're asking is, who is the banker? Next season, which they're having a season 2, it hasn't been officially announced, but it's going to happen next season. That's no longer a twist. Like, nobody cares. So it's weird to me that they're kind of harping on that in this episode.
Well, also, maybe it's because we, I obviously work in reality TV and we talk about these shows a lot, but like, is it not obvious to everybody else the banker is just an arm of the production?
Yeah.
Like, there's not a real banker. This isn't a real island. It's not a real boat that the bankers live. Like, this isn't like an actual banker with a private island. This is off the coast in Panama, and the banker is the show. Like, that's right.
I think most people know that.
Do most people know that? Okay. Because they're acting as if we don't. It's like
they are. There's
actually some, and I'm okay with them like hamming it up and having fun with it, having Howie come out, and sure, but the way they're treating it is almost like we should be like dying to know and like, I can't believe this person has put them through all this. Like, no, guys, it's not a real person. It's the show.
Yeah. Monkey Shines here says, I think Mr. Beast is the banker. How he was in his latest video.
Mr. Beast is huge. I mean, that's someone who could fit the bill. It's not a bad guess. I don't think. I mean, Mr. Beast is so all about YouTube. I don't know if he would do a network TV show that's kind of anti his whole kind of world.
But even Thomas McGee says, I'll be shocked if it's not Howie. I think we all will at this point. But I guess more of what my point is like when you like break it down in the simplest terms of what last night's episode was, they talked about what they're playing for. The banker was hinted at and seen for the first time, but we don't know who it is. And then they ran around in a maze. Okay, what are we breaking down from that? Like, like Deal or No Deal Island? We've been able to break down the strategy elements, what you're doing, what you're not. There was nothing happened that was big in this episode, and that was disappointing to me. It really was. This was the worst episode of this show, and I found myself being like, man, they can't drop the ball this close to the end, and it feels like
It's this is what you call like not landing the plane.
Yeah.
Like they did not stick the landing on how to wrap this thing up. What did you think about Boston Rob cheating?
Was it said earlier that he couldn't do that? Was that outlined in the rules?
It was said. I'll have to go back and rewatch if they ADR'd it though, because they'll do that a lot. They'll like make sure, because obviously we know they're explaining the rules off camera too. So who knows if it was in Joe's host copy, but they did have it in there when he was going through it. But I don't know if it came out of his mouth. Like I don't know if we saw.
Yeah, if it's ADR, that freaks me out a little because it's like, well, did he not actually say it to them? Like I understand the rules are explained elsewhere, but like maybe Boston Rob really did miss that. I mean. Look, on Survivor, you can do that. Flip your numbers, knock over your thing, whatever. They put up the dividers. If Boston Rob wants to look, he wants to look.
Yeah, I thought they were going to like flash back to like a Survivor clip. I mean, obviously it's CBS and NBC. They don't own that footage, but they could have paid for, hey, this is what you're allowed to do in Survivor. And to me, that's something that the banker, this fictional character, wouldn't the banker love that? Like,
does that not make you like deceitful? Is that not one of the things?
Yeah, or like whatever. Like I think the title of this episode was "Are You Tenacious?"
Which was funny because then they talked about the termination instead. But whatever.
Yeah, isn't that like a tenacious person would, maybe bend the laws of morality here in a game for a bunch of money that I'm just going to peek over and look, or have it so like these aren't like put a, I don't know, like a number. Like a dial pad, or I don't know. You could make this thing a little more high techy. The tiles are kind of weird, and then it lights up. Like the kind of art direction and theming of some of these challenges do kind of confuse. I mean, like I overall get they're going for kind of like this like island resort vibe, but then you have like the banker and the bridge. I feel like these could be teched up a bit. Give me some tech. And then even in the maze today, like they're like running through the maze, and you see like iced tea stations. It's not even water. Like it's literally like it's not like you're on a marathon and someone hands you water because you're tired. It's like, no, this is like a iced tea at like a table where they expect you to like stand and like sip on your iced tea. It's like you're in the middle of running a maze. What are those doing there?
Yeah,
I was baffled by the iced tea, Phil.
I thought that was funny too because I saw the little stands. I said, "Oh, good, somebody will be able to get water," and then it was brown, and I was like, "They're giving them iced tea instead." That's interesting. So Boston Rob has
all about
an iced tea break.
Iced tea, yeah.
And I will say this. I think that's another flaw with this challenge is it kind of went against the entire vibe of what the show is, which the show is supposed to be like elegant, but you got to get down in the dirt sometimes. The whole iced tea thing is supposed to like, symbolize, oh, like we're wealthy, laid back, whatever. And then they're sprinting through a maze trying to jump over obstacles and stuff. It feels out of theme with what they're doing.
Well, yeah, and so many of the challenges have been like, which case are you going to go for? Or, can you read what someone else is going to do and like weigh your decisions? This was just get to the highest value case as fast as you can. That I mean, there's no intrigue outside of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I know. And we don't even know which the highest values are. There was no hint for the people who got there first of like, here's a riddle for you to see if you can figure out which case is the best to take.
Right.
Silly.
Could have been reworked, this one. I mean, I like
Yeah.
a maze. Don't get me wrong. I like a maze. I
Mhm.
think you could have put different points. Yeah, maybe some more riddles or like more like actual real tough decisions, like real
Mhm.
dilemmas here. Um, yeah.
I totally agree
What
with you.
else? What else? We got anything else on this? I mean,
There was nothing else
we
that
haven't had
happened.
elimination. Yeah,
I texted you and
that's
said it's
fine.
30 to 35-minute podcast because I don't know if we can stretch it out longer. And I don't know if we can stretch it out longer.
It's part one of the finale.
Yeah.
So this is part one of our finale coverage, and thus it's a little bit shorter. I don't know what else to say, Phil.
And like I think about the other time that this once happened. Here's a Survivor comparison for you, right? In Survivor Panama, the episode before the finale was Final Four. Now they generally didn't do that back in the day. They used to do it as Final Four was the finale. But in Survivor Panama, they did it as the Final Four got its own episode before the finale, and that was the episode where Danielle and Cerise sit down and make fire at the very end. That really worked because it changed up the structure of a game that we had seen numerous times before that. We see them go and make fire at the end of this game, which is super exciting. It's a fun idea. We'd seen fire made before this, but this is a really fun idea. It's something unique, and it's really determining, like, oh my God, who's going to be in the final three, whatever. Because of that, it makes the final two portion of Survivor Panama a little long, which worked because Aris fell and almost had to be medevaced on day 39. Good for Survivor for timing that out perfectly. But when you watch that, right, you see how you can build the suspense because you've already established what you are. You're not eliminating somebody in your episode before the finale. You're breaking the rhythm of what your finale is, but you're starting off with something unique and different that the audience hasn't seen. Like that was set up for this big battle at the start. And now this is not set up as a big battle at the start. It's literally like, did Boston Rob catch up enough to Amy? That's all that we're asking at this point. And so, like you've seen other shows, ones that even as successful as Survivor, break their rhythm and have an episode right before the finale that doesn't do anything, doesn't eliminate somebody. But it at least adds a lot of drama to what the next episode is going to be. There's not going to be much drama in the next episode, which almost makes me wonder too if they're saving the reveals for the finale. Is the ending of the show going to be a little bit of a dud?
I mean, we still got to figure out how to get from 2 to 1, and I don't even need to.
They're going to do a 100-yard dash.
Let's see what they do. Yeah, let's see what they do.
100-yard dash with 2 briefcases in your hand. That's it. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, and then you have to put your left or right briefcase on, and then whichever has the higher value.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to guess correctly, left or right. Which one has more money?
I love this.
Oh, I went left. Right, damn it. I'm out of the whole challenge. I'm out of the whole show because I didn't guess correctly.
You're on a heater today with your ideas. We're done. Yeah. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. Like I said, unfortunately, I'm not around at all next week. So maybe we podcast May 20th and that's our finale coverage. Maybe Will jumps on and does like his own hot takes and I can jump in and do my own takes afterwards. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll do something, but we both won't be here next week. Doing this at like our usual Tuesday time. So hopefully it ends with a good note, better than this episode. We'll see what ends up happening. For anybody who's interested, John and I are doing, and potentially Will might jump in. We're doing Westworld and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes tonight. So if you're excited for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes being released this weekend in movie theaters, we're doing Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Actually, the second one in the prequel trilogy or in the reboot trilogy. So we are going to be doing Dawn of the Planet of the Apes tonight. So you can get really excited for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes with that. That's going to be at 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. So tune into that one. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Will and I will be back tomorrow night recapping Survivor episode number 11. And that's it. Thank you all so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed this as much as we can make it enjoyable. And we'll see you next time.
That's right. See ya.